Welcome back to the Laravel News Creator Spotlight Series. With me today is Joel Clermont, and he is, he builds all kinds of stuff within the Laravel ecosystem. If you don't know him, he does everything from daily Laravel tips to a thing called Mastering Laravel, another company, No Compromises, but he just does a whole lot of stuff. So Joel, I want to welcome you to the show, and if you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself.
I think I do too much. I've been thinking about early retirement. It sounds pretty good, and my wife says maybe you should just have fewer jobs. But yeah, that's a good overview, and you kind of hit on the two main parts of my Laravel life, which is sort of the educational side with Mastering Laravel. We have a daily newsletter. Tips we publish online. We have some books and courses. We have a podcast, and then No Compromises is a business that does Laravel consulting, where we'll, myself and my partner Aaron will join a project. We'll either build something or help a team, and so it's kind of those two things work hand in hand together.
That's awesome. So the Mastering Laravel. So that sort of give me like, how did that start, and sort of the background on how did that come about, I guess?
You want to hear all my evil plots to get more business? Yeah, it's basically, I'll be honest, it started as a marketing tactic for our consulting business. There's a million people that will build a web app for you, right? And so it's how do you get somebody to know who you are and what you specialize in and what your skills are. And so there was a marketing / positioning group that I hang out in, and the guy who runs it really beats the drum. Like, the best way is to have a daily email. Keep it short, whatever. And I resisted that for many years, right? I was like, I don't like email in my inbox. Why am I going to send people an email every single day? But I started as an experiment, just like posting on Twitter, a tip each day. Because the other challenge was like, can I come up with something every day? I don't know. And it's Monday through Friday, so it's not truly every day. But I did as an experiment almost 2 years ago now, and I made it like 100 days. And my list of tips because I always keep like a running log of ideas as I work throughout the day. The backlog I had was longer than the 100 days I just spent. So I'm like, okay, I can definitely keep this up for a while. But anyways, that is sort of how it started. And we've published some books, some free, some paid. And I kind of backed into enjoying the educational aspect of it. And so that's where, like, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd love to have more income coming through Mastering Laravel. Not that I don't like working with clients, but I can only do so much of that. And Mastering Laravel, I can help a lot more people, and it's more fulfilling, I guess, than just like cranking out someone's business app, day in, day out. But yeah, that was sort of where it started, and it's grown a little bit from there, and it's kind of spread out. But that was like the original seed of the idea. Have a daily email, show people you know what you're talking about, and like maybe they'll hire you, and that has worked out. So it was a good marketing strategy.
That's awesome. Speaking of like the daily tips, we run Laravel News, and we try to have a post every day, Monday through Friday. And I'll be honest, like some weeks are hard, and then other weeks you have so much content, like I can't possibly put this much out. But I assume, like, for you, that actually the consulting or the hired side actually works well with the daily tips, because you're running into all these different problems, and so you're like, hey, here's a tip right here, right in front of me. Is that sort of helping do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything I write about is like probably something I did the day or the week before. And again, I'm a little biased, but I think my tips are good for that reason. Sometimes you'll see a tip on Twitter. It's like, oh, did you know you could run artisan info? It's like, yeah, I read the documentation. I know that, but and I'm not making fun of that, because not everybody knows everything. But I think my tips in particular, I'm really focused on shipping real world apps, and like I run into weird stuff. And so I will write it down. I will run into something and I have to figure that out. Like, why did it work that way? Even if I came up with a workaround, like why did that happen? And so, in a weird sort of way, having this daily publishing cadence has sort of unlocked a portion of my brain that has made me a little bit more curious about how things work. And when it's also like a weird mental reframing. When I hit a bug, I'm mad at first, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? This could be a tip, right? There's a silver lining here. And so that is something that's just like constantly running in the background of my mind, is like, oh, is that a tip? And so at the end of each day, I'll even think back, what did I work on today? What did I get stuck on? And I might, like yesterday, I think I wrote out like 9 tips because I had kind of a day. So there's a lot of different things I ran into. And the other thing I will say, just because what you're doing is a little more hard, I think, which is you're writing full articles. My tips, like I've tried to keep in them 200-300 words, something you could read in an email in like 2 minutes. So sometimes I'll even have like the seed of an idea, and I'm like, oh, that's a little bit bigger, and I'll make 2 or 3 tips out of it. So that also helps with the content publishing.
That's nice. And then, since you're doing email and you're talking about code and Laravel and things like that, have you had any problems actually like sharing code in the emails, or have you found a good workaround for doing that? Because that's something I've always struggled with. It's like I can't really put good code blocks in email. Yeah,
that I sort of gave up, and I only do image snapshots of code, and then I'll have people that are like, oh, this should be text, it's not accessible. I'm like, okay, but the compromise is everything we publish in the email, we also publish to the site. And on the site, it is like a copy pastable code block. So that's been my answer, is like, just click the link at the top, read it on the web if you want to copy paste that code. But yeah, it is, as far as I know, there's no good way to do it. Certainly not with ConvertKit. So that's the platform we use. So I will render it on our website. Actually, I take that back. We do render it on the website as code. I use a desktop app called Showcode, which is from someone else in the Laravel community, and that's great. I can paste it in there. It puts a nice little background on it. I can size it, export it as a PNG, and I'm done. So that's the best solution I've come up with so far.
Nice, I love it. And if you haven't seen his daily tips newsletter, you should definitely subscribe. It's one of the best testimonials, though, is actually from Ian Landsman, and he says, usually tip newsletters suck. Yours is great. Keep it up. and it's great. It's like, because it is. It's I've been subscribed, I guess, a year or 2 now, and it's like every day you get another little tip, and it's always something good.
When he emailed me that, I said, can I use that as a testimonial? That's great. And he's like, if you want. But yeah, I get a giggle out every time I see that.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's concise, consistent, and it's true. I mean, it is probably one of the best newsletters out there right now. So definitely check that out. So going from there, outside of the newsletter tip, your Mastering Laravel also has a Slack community and just a bigger like sort of community aspect to it. What happens in there, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, so a little background on that. I don't think this is spoiling anything, but it ties in with your shirt, Laravel Shift. So the Mastering Laravel Slack community actually used to be the Shifty Slack community that Jason McCreary ran. And so I think he had it as an add-on if you were on one of the plans, or you could buy it separately. But for whatever reason, I ended up there, a few years ago, and it was nice. It was a few dozen programmers in there just shooting the breeze. Some of it was like Laravel Shift support stuff, but a lot of it was just, Laravel people sharing problems and solutions and things like that. So at some point, Jason's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I had been pretty active, and he basically handed over the reins to me. And so last year, we had it closed to new signups for quite a while. But last year we thought, this actually could be a good tie-in to some of the other educational things we do. Like for example, maybe you buy a book or a course and you have questions about it, or you want to share ideas, or like even the tips. Like I have a channel in there that's all about tips, and that it'll stir discussion in there. So we reopened that a few months back, and it's been good. It's not really paying the bills. It is a paid community, but it's more a labor of love, and we really charge just to kind of keep out spammers and like crypto bots and things like that. So it's just like a minimal bar to entry to make sure the quality of the people joining stays high, and it has. It's been good. We've experimented with maybe doing some like monthly Q&As or live calls, and time zones are hard, right? We have a lot of people in there from all over the world, so that's been tough. We haven't quite figured that out, but that is something I'd like to pursue as well. But mainly the community is just a way for. It's sort of like, if you joined the Laravel Discord or some of these other public communities, and it wasn't like a barrage of nonstop questions, right? So it's just the volume is very manageable, and there's a lot of, like, I'm not the only one in there answering questions. There's other people that bring their own perspectives and their own experience, and that I've learned from that. In fact, sometimes a conversation in there will spark a tip, right? So it's sort of like this content wheel that just keeps spinning, and it's been beneficial for that way too.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the benefits to something like what you have over sort of the random public channel too is it doesn't even matter if it's like 10 people, but you can actually build a relationship in there, because it's not, everything's not getting just pushed away instantly because of so many active people. I love that aspect of it, as close, manageable. You can make friends, and you can communicate with people.
Well, in fact, Laracon wasn't that long ago, and I got to meet up with some people that were there that I'd never met them in person before, and maybe I wouldn't have met them in person, but because we were in the Slack together, it was like, hey, let's grab lunch or let's hang out, and it was nice, to put a face to the avatar that you're chatting with over the last several months.
Yes, and it's sort of random and off topic. It always amazes me. It's like you'll go meet somebody in person at a conference, and then you're like, you think back to their avatar, and you're like, I didn't realize you were this tall, or
That's right, yeah.
Things like that. It's just funny. Oh man, but that's awesome. Yes, I'm glad to see all that doing well. And then I want to sort of transition a little bit and start and talk about like these books you have. So I believe you have 2 out right now, and you just launched one.
Yeah, we have one paid book, which is all about validation. A very thrilling topic, but actually it is something that I think we have a unique point of view on, and is super valuable. Like every app should have it. That's was our one paid book for a long time. And then we had 2 free books that were a little smaller, and we just gave them away for free to kind of let people know who we are. But yeah, last week I launched actually 3 books, but they're all sort of the same idea. And all it is, this might sound dumb, but it's like a published ebook of the daily tips. Right. And people were asking me for this. Like, this isn't like, oh, Joel's like, how can I make more money? But like, people were saying, hey, I know they're on your site. I know I got the email, but it'd be kind of cool if you could like throw together an ebook. I'd even pay a few bucks for it. So I'm like, I think after I heard the third person say that, I'm like, okay, I probably should do this. So that's what we did and of course, because we're programmers, Aaron, my partner, he had to like write not just like a tool to build the book, but like a whole book building library called Typesetter, which is great. We were going to publish our other books with that too. But yeah, now I can run one artisan command and publish like 3 months of tips into an ebook, upload it to our Gumroad store, and away we go. So that just came out, and that, I got some good feedback. Again, none of these things are going to like, oh, I guess I can retire from client work, but it all helps, because there's expenses like running the podcast, doing these things, all these little monthly bills add up. So if it just offsets that, I'm happy. That's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea too, because that was something I was going to ask. Like, say I go join the newsletter today, how do I see the previous ones? I guess you go see them online, maybe, but and some people that actually run these sort of campaigns will actually, the day you sign up, you get the very first, and then you go through. But then you have all these users on different levels, so it's like not everybody's getting the same tip the same day, and then it might get a little confusing and stuff. So I think an ebook is a sort of a great idea, and then you can just print it off and like read it when you have time, or whatever you want to do with it.
And then I could be like, oh, I've written 6 books, and like, well, I mean, technically I have, but 3 of them were just written one day at a time. I guess all books are written one day at a time, but yeah, it is useful. And the other thing too, like, we don't have currently a search on the site, and so I can just open up PHP Storm, because all of our tips are just markdown files, because I'll be like, what was that tip about, observers or something, and I can find it. But other people can't really do that as easily. So a book, it's a PDF, right? You can search that. And so it's one more mechanism for finding something that you kind of remember, but you don't remember exactly what month it was or what day it was.
For sure. So to sort of go back a little bit, you mentioned a tool called Typesetter. Is that something you're going to release, or is that
it is? It's
something
out
is
there.
released?
Yeah, we're not really promoting it, but it is. Yeah, it's a public open source repo. There's two components to it. There's like a Typesetter core library, which actually renders Markdown to PDF, and then there's a Typesetter CLI tool that you could use for generating books. So like in our case, we used the core library because we already had an app that we could write an artisan command in. But like if you were just self-publishing a book, you'd probably use the Typesetter CLI, and it would pull the library in and generate it for you. But it's in fact, one of the recent tips this week was me talking about how maybe it's not even out yet. I write them a week in advance, but it's basically like, oh, you can review code, but you don't really appreciate it until you use it. And I was actually thinking specifically about that Typesetter library because Aaron wrote it, and I was like, oh, I looked at it. Yeah, it looks good. And then I went to use it, and I'm like, wow, this thing is really nice. Like I wanted to make some tweaks to some styles or to the table of contents. And like he had sort of thought through everything. Like there was a hook for me to make the change that I wanted to make. So I was like, wow, that's some good work. I appreciate it. And it's not biased because I didn't write a single line of code in Typesetter, so I can't take any credit for it. So far, it's all been Aaron.
I love that. And so that's sort of your company itself is just basically you and Aaron, y'all just sort of partners and everything.
I mean, again, a little peek behind the curtain. Like technically, we each have our own business. No Compromises is my company, and he has a company called More, Better, Faster, which is a fun title as well. But we work together, and so most of our clients we kind of represent as No Compromises, and then we split up the work and figure out who gets what money. But yeah, right now we actually are two separate LLC companies, independent from each other. But for all practical purposes, he is my partner because we work together every day.
Right, I love that. It's good to have friends too, and just to bounce, if nothing more than to bounce ideas off of, and
Absolutely.
sort of, I have this idea. Let me know if this is dumb, and they'll be honest with you.
For sure. Yeah.
So the books, you can get all the books on Mastering Laravel .io. So you have the purchase flow and everything on there for the paid ones, and then you have a free one for signing up. Yep. Awesome. So now let's transition a little bit into the No Compromises, because I think that's a pretty cool setup, basically. So just step through how this works.
All right. So like hiring a developer to write a Laravel app, nothing new there, right? Everybody does that. I think our unique approach to this is the way that we structure the work and the way we charge for it. So it's very typical that a programmer will charge hourly. My rate is X dollars per hour. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'll give you an estimate, but you're going to pay me for every hour I spend. And that's fine. It works. I did it for many years. What we do instead is we kind of played around with this model where it's like, you know what, just hire us for the month for a flat fee, and we'll work on your project, right? Whatever that means takes a little bit of explanation. But while it's a different way of doing it, and it is a little challenging to set expectations as to like how much work you're getting. Like, are we working full time on your project? No, but by shifting the cost structure that way, it actually has improved our sales funnel, whatever. Like people are interested because they can see the price and they can make at least a snap budget judgment. Can I afford that? And then the secondary question is like, well, do these guys know what they're doing, right? So hopefully we've answered that with some of the other things. But you put the two together, it's like, oh, we can afford them. That's a fair price. Let's give it a shot. And it's really made sales simple, because in the past, you'd have to do a proposal, or you'd have to like do a small project to build some trust before you can do the big project. That now it's like it's a slam dunk. In fact, while I was at Laracon, the very first time this happened, somebody actually signed up, put in their credit card, and hired us. And I literally never talked to them, which I found extremely. In fact, I'm like, at first, is this a scam? Is somebody scamming me somehow right now? But generally we'll have an intro phone call, just talk a little bit. But this person read our website and thought, oh yeah, I want that, and just signed up. And I checked, because we're almost at the end of September, they are going to renew next month, so they must be happy. But that's been a fun experiment. We had done this style of billing for a while before we made it public. And I think it was December of 2023, we launched the new site. that's entirely focused on this monthly pricing model. And it's been very good overall, I think. I mean, I've enjoyed it, and our clients seem to be happy because they stick around.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was one of the things I've always been scared about going into, like more of like an agency side, is like, figuring out the quote, and then then you misquote, and then like, oh no, now I've undercharged, or oh no, I've like charged them double and they're not going to sign up. That just seems like it relieves so much headache doing it this way. And like you said, for budgeting seems awesome.
It definitely relieves headache. It simplifies things for me, but there is also a tangible benefit for the customer because there will be no surprises. Like, they know what it is going to cost. Really, the only squishy area is, what do I get for that? And so that is something I've had a little trouble framing that. I think we've done pretty good, but our basic value proposition isn't, we're going to spend X hours or X days a week, but it's like, you know what? Every week we're going to ship something of value. Like, what does that mean to you? It's going to vary from project to project. On some projects, if they're like a well-oiled machine, we might just be coming in and building a feature for you. But if you're on a project that's still on like Laravel 6 and PHP 7, like, we might come in and help you get that updated, or we might help you start a practice of testing, or we might introduce a tool like PHP Stand, like things that teams maybe have struggled with and just nobody in-house ever took the leap to do it. Now we can come in, we've done that 1,000 times, and I can maybe bang that out in a week or two. And so what that thing of value is varies from client to client, but that's sort of the value proposition. And one thing we do, I don't think I've seen any other developer do, is we offer a money back guarantee. Like, if you get to the end of the first month and you're like, nah, this wasn't worth it, we will give you your money back. And we have had one client, I won't name them, one client did ask for a refund, and it was truly a miscommunication. They really thought, for whatever reason, we'd be working like full-time on their project, and like, not for that price. But yeah, we do that. And so that takes risk off the table for the customer too. Like, if they don't know us, and I mean, they have to trust we'll give them their money back, but short of that, everything else, they can just see how the first month goes and then decide if it was worth it or not.
That's awesome. And then I assume, like, for communication, y'all just email back and forth throughout the month, or is it like you just do like a standard onboarding call and then a monthly check-in, things like that? Or do you have a sort of a setup?
Yeah, we try to avoid scheduled meetings. That's kind of the main message we send on the site, is like, we're not going to join your daily stand-up. We're not going to do weekly check-ins. But honestly, like, if you're using GitHub, we like to have a project board set up, and like, that is the main source of communication, whether it's inside an individual issue or it's the movement of issues through the columns in a project board. We're not averse to having a call. Like, sometimes there's a big new feature coming, or there's just something you have to talk through. Like, we'll have a call if we need it, but just not as part of like a regular cadence. We try to keep a lot of that ceremony to a minimum, just because it helps us be more efficient, which helps us to actually deliver more value than just doing meetings. That, in fact, is another reason we're at an advantage to kind of an in-house employee that might be working on the same team. We don't get pulled into calls. We don't get pulled into meetings. We can just focus on shipping code and making the project better.
Nice. I love that. And you mentioned GitHub. So they have, I don't know how long this has been out, but I always found it interesting. It's almost like a Trello board inside your GitHub issues.
Yeah.
So you basically do everything through that. I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. GitLab has something similar. One of the clients we work with uses this app called Shortcut. So it's like, we'll use whatever tool you have. At first, when we built the site, we had a line in there, something about like, we only work with GitHub, and I quickly thought like, that's probably taking too hard of a stance. They all work fine. You know what? You want me to work in Jira? I'll work in Jira. Like, that's not really where I'm doing most of my work. It's just where I go to get the requirements and to send updates. So yeah, we'll work with any tool, but yeah, we try to fit in with the flow that the team is already using.
That's awesome. So, well, like, this is just sort of for something I'm curious about. Let's say you have like 10 companies using GitHub, and they're all using the little board style. Do you, like, from your account, do you have like one space you can see everything, or is it you just have to sort of like set a reminder to go in and check all these companies' repos?
Yeah, I can see at a high level all the tasks assigned to me, but I don't think I could create, let me think about this. I don't think I could create a meta project board that spans repos. I haven't tried it, but I know it kind of depends on the permissions they give us too. Like if we have just like write access to the repo and like triage for issues, like a lot of clients, I couldn't create a board for them, or I couldn't edit board settings. So I don't know, but that would be actually kind of nice. I have a different tool. I use this task manager called OmniFocus, and so at the start of each week, I just kind of have a checklist in there of the things I need to get done each week, and I work off of that. And if something changes, I'll update it in there. But it's a little bit of double work because I can't just update OmniFocus. I have to update GitHub, but it's not too bad. Like there's very little friction to that. I'm not spending a lot of time on that.
Yes. So I met Joel we were in Greenville for the PHP Upstate meeting, and I happened to glance over at his computer and he had OmniFocus open.
Yes.
And it was just full of tasks. And I was like, how do you manage this? And it was a pretty sweet setup though, to be honest. Like I know, you can do OmniFocus or things. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different apps, but OmniFocus was kind of the original from like way back in the day. And
it's been using it probably 15 years. Like I think it's when I switched to a Mac is when I started using OmniFocus, and my first Mac was like 2005. So it's almost 20 years now, now that I think about it. But yeah, it's ingrained in my brain. There's probably, like if I was starting fresh today, I might not pick it because it is a little pricey and it's a little geeky and it's very fiddly. But I've just got it tuned to like the way my brain works, and it's like, it's on my phone, it's even on my watch, like all this stuff. I can capture things anywhere I'm walking or working on something. It's like ingrained in my brain right now.
I honestly tried it after you mentioned it.
Okay.
It did not fit me.
I get it. I totally get it.
I went back to Todoist just because it's like simple and all I need is like a list.
It's probably a better choice. I agree.
But yeah, it's so good. That is something that's sort of neat in real life situations, is like getting these little, seeing the way other people work that you don't see when you just work online by yourself. You're just always on the computer. So yeah, you always like learn little tips and little things just by watching people. And I think that's fun.
I agree.
Yeah. And, so it seems like No Compromises is doing pretty well. I mean, you're pretty much close to being full, or you still got some spots open in that?
Yeah, like if somebody want to hire me for October, I'm 100% full. But it's fluid because some companies have a temporary need, so they'll come on and then go off. Not because they're unhappy, but just because they needed help with something, and that thing is done. We had some companies that we worked for in Europe, and I don't know if this is like a European thing, but like, oh, we're taking off July and August because like everybody's on vacation. Like, okay, like can I take an 8-week vacation? But so things ebb and flow. The other thing we're sort of debating is, do we want to scale back our capacity to open up more capacity for our own work? Whether that be I have an idea for a course I want to write on testing. We started a project. In fact, there's a website up for it called SourceDive.com, which is like a tool that we use internally, or would want to use internally. We're building it for ourselves, but to like explore a Laravel app, like how does this thing work? What are all the weird things going on? But you have to carve out time to work on that. So we're thinking, maybe we take on less clients to make more time for that. So that's something we're thinking about. But yeah, if somebody has an interest, I'd be happy to talk to them, but not for October, please. We're booked up right now.
Something you mentioned. I run a weekly the weekly Laravel newsletter, and the same way. It's like July, August. The autoresponders are like, I'm not at the desks for like 8 weeks, and it's like, why do we as Americans not understand how cool this is?
Doing that wrong. That's a life goal for me. I'm taking kids get off for the summer, right?
Yeah,
like, they get off school, so maybe they're onto something. Maybe we should think about that, Eric.
We should. The only problem is I think we'd be so far behind that life would. Yeah, our life would be much harder by taking the week off, taking those weeks off than not. That is funny. Well, so sort of speaking of those, do you say like you're in Europe and you take 2 months off, do you sort of like just pause subscriptions, or you just have them cancel and then restart back up? Or
yeah, I mean, So the subscription is managed manually. Like there's no Stripe checkout page you go to and like pause it. I get this question from other developers that want to implement a similar style. Like, how did you implement this? I'm like, it's called send me an email and I'll pause it. Like, I won't send you an invoice. So I'm very much of the mind not to like over engineer something. Like once something is actually a problem, I'll build an automated solution for it. But we don't have like so many clients that it's hard to manage. But yeah, like that's another value proposition of this subscription model is like, if you want to bring us on 1 month and then pause for 2 months, like you don't feel bad about it. And in fact, I even think we'll sort of contrast the way we work with an employee, because sometimes somebody wants to hire full time and they just can't find the person. It's like, you can't tell an employee like, we're going to pause you for 2 months with no pay. Like that just doesn't work. But for me, no hard feelings. I'll enjoy the time off. So yeah, it's very fluid that way, and customers do take advantage of that, whether it's for the long European vacations or just because of their own internal needs and bandwidth.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way as far as billing. Like we sell like newsletters, sponsorships, and sponsor posts, things like that. But it's like I keep always thinking like I should build a tool where they could like log in, see the available weeks, all this stuff. But it's like, really, it's like one a week. You can just email me. I'll tell you the availability, and then I'll send you an invoice, and it's easy.
Exactly.
But I guess it does. Doing it that way would take out the human element. But most people do want to talk to you anyway. It doesn't matter what they're buying. It seems like so that works out pretty well. But yeah, so that's awesome. Well, anything else you're working on that we may have missed?
No, I think we hit all the high points. The thing I'm really focused on now is that SourceDive app, sourcedive.com. And so it's a very interesting idea. I think we've gotten far enough along in it that I know it's feasible. I don't know if it'll have value to anybody outside of somebody like me that's jumping between, a bunch of different apps in a month. So that is something that I want to spend more time on. And I think it might be interesting. Like we have like a wait list where you can sign up for more information, and people like will plunk their email in there. So there must be something interesting. But yeah, that's probably the only other thing I could think of to mention that might be of interest.
So I don't think we talked about SourceDive. So tell us sort of the highlights of what exactly that is or going to be.
The way I envisioned it initially, and the way the site presents itself right now, is it's basically a way of exploring a Laravel code base, right? So, we all have our different ways. Like when you sit down you check out a brand new repo, like how do you get a sense of what's going on? Like a lot of times you look at the routes file, or maybe you look at the models, or maybe you run artisan info or about, or what, I forget what the command is. But, there's all these different ways of doing it. And that's good for like the 10,000 foot view. But now you're going to start working on it. Like short of sitting there and reading every file, it is a little challenging to kind of know how things work, especially when you get things like events and observers and listeners and these things that are like, maybe there's like two different files connecting together that form an entire feature. And so SourceDive to me was like a visual way of viewing a code base and querying it, to be like, hey, what are all the things that update the user model, or what are all the things that read this field? And it would spit out this list of controller actions, maybe like this artisan command, maybe this queued job. And so that was kind of like the original idea of it, like a visual static analysis that's very aware of how Laravel works. And it's not just like a generic PHP tool, but it's sort of like knows Laravel features. We've pivoted a little bit because I'll be honest, that is like kind of a hard thing to build. Like we've tried, and we've made some progress, but now we've pivoted a little bit, and it's more focused on onboarding and like giving advice as to how we think your project could benefit. Like, hey, I noticed you don't have any sort of coding standards enforced, or there's literally hundreds of little rules we've come up with. But the idea is like you could scan your code base and get the no compromises view of like how your project is doing with an actionable list of things to go fix. So that's like the little bit of a pivot we're working on right now, and it's something we would use ourselves internally. but I think it would be of value too to other people that maybe it's like a solo dev and they don't have that person to bounce ideas off of, and they'd like an outside opinion, and they can't pay us for a code review. We do code reviews, but if you don't have the money to pay us for that, maybe you'd pay 10% of that for a tool that does it for you automatically. So that's the idea. I have all these grandiose plans for it, but I just need time to work on them all.
I love that. Yeah, I keep thinking of like a checklist. Like it scans it, and then it's like, hey, here's what you need to do, and here's the checklist. And then I also keep thinking back to like the whole like AI and LLM stuff, and it's like if you could scan the code base and be like, I don't even know how that would do, like some sort of flow chart or something. I'm just thinking like going back to how you mentioned like it's like events and handlers and all these things, because even in my own projects, like if I built it 5 years ago, I'm like, what is going on here? Like I don't put the context together.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And like the beauty of Laravel is there's more than one way to do things, but it's also a challenge because like I could have routing is a perfect example. I have a link to this route and it's just the URL, or maybe it's a named route, or maybe it's like a prefix name route. Or it's like dynamically built. There's all these different things where if you just want to know what are all of the views that link to this route, like that's a hard question to answer with find and replace. Like it takes a little bit deeper analysis and understanding. And so everything we've done is not with AI. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but like I wanted to take a crack at like a pure static analysis approach with the knowledge of Laravel layered on top to see how far I could get. But maybe eventually there'll be some AI in there just to make it easier. I don't know. But so far that's our approach.
I love that. It's funny you mentioned routes. What my personal way to do it is I don't ever like route prefixes or anything. I want the full route or the full URI. And that way when I'm in the browser, I can just like copy that and paste it into the route so I can find where exactly I'm actually looking at. Because when it's getting broken up, I'm like, I can't find any of this mess.
I shared a tip because we actually do use groups quite a bit. And that was the most common feedback is like, well, when you group it, you lose this. And I have some answers for that. But you're right. Like there is a simplicity to just having a whole string you can search on and go right to it. Like that is nice. I agree.
Which, well, I will say this: if you have an admin group or a control panel group, that's not that to me. That's not too bad because I can sort of guess from there. But yeah, it's well, and two, when you have 1,000 routes, it gets sort of then it gets really tricky. But for little simple apps, it's like whatever, you can do whatever you want. But you need some system that the whole team works together with, and that seems like a cool tool to go and analyze all that.
I think so.
Make sure it's right.
We'll see. We'll try.
So when do you plan on like fully releasing, or do you have any ideas?
It's a little ways out. Yeah, like it's not quite at a point that we can use it internally. So that's we're going to get to that point where we've used it on a number of client projects and we feel like, okay, this thing is delivering value. So I couldn't tell you when, but I mean we have it working, so it is working locally, but it's got quite a ways to go. So yeah, if you're hoping for something next month, I'm not going to be able to help you, but next year, maybe early next year, who knows? Again, Aaron's been doing a lot of work on this the last few months, so I can't throw out an artificial deadline for him because he would not like that. But it is something we are actively working on right now.
That's awesome. Yes. Well, if we don't have anything else, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing sort of the insights into everything you're building and how you're building them. We will definitely have show links, on the post and the YouTube and everywhere else this is going to be published out. I would also like to say, this is sort of unrelated, but this Laravel News Creator Spotlight, we started as a YouTube series, but you can actually download it in your podcast app of choice now. So we do have both options available. That's my little sales pitch.
Nice. I'll have to subscribe to that. I'm always looking for more podcasts. I watch YouTube on the couch on the TV, so it has to be something that my wife would want to watch too. And I don't think she's going to be into Laravel News. I'm sorry, but
totally understand. Totally understand.
Podcast for sure. I like that. That's great.
Well, so just on a personal level, like how do you find the time to listen to podcasts? Because me personally, like I want to listen to them, but I can't do it when I'm working because I'm not focused on the podcast, and then I just can't do it. So it's like I feel like there's no good time in my day to actually listen to podcasts.
My time is I take several walks throughout the day, just for exercise and just to clear my head. It's one of the beauties of working from home. So, I'll go walk a couple miles 3 times a day. And so I'll listen on those walks, but also just like, doing yard work or stuff around the house, I'll listen to it there. So, throughout the week, I haven't looked at it, but I probably listen to 10, 11 podcasts in a given week, just between all the walking and the yard work and cleaning the basement and, all the different things you do. I will throw my earbuds in and queue up the podcast and then listen to it at like a faster speed than 1x. That's another thing I get used to doing. Your brain can absorb it a little faster than 1x.
That's pretty good idea. What about like notes and stuff? Do you ever like take notes on podcasts you listen to, or you just try to like remember what you've heard?
Oh, that's what I use OmniFocus for. So if I'm listening to a podcast and I hear like a link or an idea or something, I will pause it. And usually on my phone, I'll just add something to my OmniFocus inbox to remind me to do it, to go back and listen to it. In fact, there's like I use Overcast, the podcast player, and it has a share feature that I have set up to go right to OmniFocus, like with a timestamp of the podcast I was listening to. So yes, that is, I do that all the time. And then I can go back and listen to it and take action on the thing I just listened to.
That is amazing. You know what you're going to have to start next is a OmniFocus tips newsletter. And you just share all these tips.
Maybe. I have thought about doing like a course productivity for developers, because I've done a lot of reading and study, and like I found some things that work really well, but I don't know. That's a little bit outside my normal wheelhouse right now, but I think I have something unique to share on that. Maybe down the road.
I don't know. I think that's something we all need. So, it definitely feels like it would have a good market there.
Yeah, because there's a lot of productivity courses. I've taken many of them, but I have yet to see one that is specifically focused on developers. And I think there are some unique challenges that come with being a developer in terms of like maintaining productivity and staying on top of everything. So, yeah, I think there is something there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you definitely could. I think you could nail that. Just like you have the Mastering Laravel community, you could master the getting things done as a developer community.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about does it. I want to thank you again, Joel, for coming on board and taking your time out this morning to come and talk with us.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thanks, Eric.